Well, I'm glad you're out here with me. It's a little bit nippy. Glad I keep my coat out here. I stuck my coat on, so it's not bad. I mean, it'll probably get hot before I get done. Um, I'm thankful tonight for the Lord's forgiveness. Um, I'm learning some things about um some of my ways, and when you have time that you can apologize to someone is a great thing. It's a great thing to apologize to someone when they're alive. But in this case and in this message tonight, I'm only using three verses in three different places of the Bible. I didn't take the time to look up how many times the word forgiveness is used. But the word forgiveness, I believe it's mentioned about 8 times in the scripture. I believe I'm right on that. And one of them here is in the book of Psalm, chapter 130. Psalm chapter 130. I'm learning that since the recent death of my mom, I'm learning some things that I didn't know. Um, there's just things that I just didn't know, and I'm learning some things, and it's tough. It's tough to be able to hear some things that I'm guilty of. Things that some things I don't remember. I mean, it's really somewhat hard to critique yourself when you don't know what your mistake was. And I'm certainly not trying to hide it. I'm not. I mean, that wouldn't do no good. If I was to hide it, it wouldn't do any good. Because God knows the thoughts and the intents of the heart. But I will say this at this time of the video. I'm glad that my mama was forgiven. And I'm also glad that I believe in my heart that when the time comes and I leave this world behind and I go to where my mother's spirit is, which is in heaven today, that I believe that there will be many times that I will probably say to my mama, I'm sorry. And I probably, no doubt, will say that to my daddy. I have very familiar memories of my dad because we worked together on the farm. I remember that Dad would always have his way of doing things. And I would always try to do things maybe a little faster or a little easier or a little quicker. And there was times that my dad would get frustrated because it wasn't going quite fast enough, but he learned to sort of leave me alone and let me do it because we were sort of like two goats that sort of butted heads. And I do remember that because that was in a time in my life that I remember that me and Dad sort of We was two of a kind. He was like me and I was like him. But when you learn things that is told to you of things that you don't remember, it makes it tough. It really makes it tough, but I'm glad that I have the opportunity to make it right when I get to heaven. I believe that there will be a lot of forgiveness when a person gets to the place called heaven. There's things that I'm learning that I was wrong in. But what do you do? What do you do about it now? After the death of the mother, what do you do about it then? The only thing that I can do is fess up. But how do you fess up on something that I really don't remember? But that doesn't really matter, because forgiveness is very, very deep. And we're going to see the word here of forgiveness in these 3 verses. And I haven't taken the time to do nothing but just read them one time. And hopefully the Lord is going to help me to explain the verses that I picked out. I only picked out 3. But in Psalm 130, in verse number 4 is one of the verses. But there is forgiveness with thee. What David, I believe, is talking about, or whoever the writer is. It doesn't say that it's David in this particular area. But there is forgiveness with thee. So whoever the writer is, just say, for instance, if the writer is David, David knows that there is forgiveness with the Lord. The Lord will forgive. If the Bible says, if you confess me before men, if you confess, then he is, let's see the verse, just and faithful to forgive you. Now, I don't know where that verse is. I don't have it here in front of me, but he is just and faithful to forgive you. When I come and I admit that there might have been somewhere I was wrong, then all I can do is fess up and ask for forgiveness of something. But see, again, how do you ask for forgiveness to someone who has already passed? But it says in verse 4, for there is forgiveness with thee, that thou mayest be feared. Now, I talk a lot about the word fear in a lot of my lessons that I bring. I think that fear could be considered the honor of God. I feel like that I want to honor God. I don't want to come out here and just make a video for the heck of making a video. I want to honor God with my words. This is what I enjoy doing. I enjoy coming out here, bringing something that just possibly, maybe will help somebody. I don't have a lot of subscribers. I don't have a lot of people that look at the videos. I am blown away by one video that I made recently, that I had more hits on that video than I ever had on any of the YouTube videos. And it was amazing to look down there and see just how many people clicked on that message I made about the warnings are all around us. There's a video talking about the warning of God that is all around us today. And it got a lot of hits. And I'm grateful and I'm thankful for that. But it says here in verse 4, but there is forgiveness with thee. meaning there is forgiveness with God. I'm thankful for that. You know, God doesn't expect me to remember every fault that I make. No doubt, I remember some of the faults that I have made with my brother and maybe my wife and some of the things that I do. I remember some of the things of the faults of my life. I'm not going to sit here and deny the faults that are in my life. But it's hard to remember everything when you're told about it. What do you do? Well, I've already answered that question. You fess up. And when I use the word fess up, I mean to confess that, Lord, I don't remember. There's some things that I just don't remember. I'm glad that the Lord don't make me confess every sin that I've ever committed, because there might be some sins that I will not think about. He looks at my belief in my heart and my love for him in my heart more than he looks at my individual sin. Some people think that the individual sin is what sends you to the pit. No, the lack of unbelief sends you to the pit. It's not that God holds us accountable for every little thing. Yes, he does. He holds me accountable, but I'm not a programmed computer. So therefore, I don't know when I might be wrong or if I hurt someone's feelings or not. But it says here, but there is forgiveness with thee. I'm glad there is forgiveness with God. I'll be honest with you, it's hard when you know that your mom is gone and the wrongdoing that maybe you did. I remember just in some of my memories of where I raised my voice because my mama's hearing was really bad. It was very difficult. She couldn't hear. She had to go get on another telephone to be able to hear. And, you know, sometimes when I raise my voice, it maybe might sound as anger, but, you know, it could have come across as anger. No doubt that it could have come across as anger. But there was times that she couldn't hear. But I'm just giving you that as an example. That don't take away the guilt from me and the things that I am guilty of. Some things you just don't know that you're guilty of. There was another verse in the book of Daniel. Now, the pastor spoke out of the book of Daniel Sunday, and I listened to some of the things that he was saying in the book of Daniel, and he brought out some things that was in the book of Daniel. But I'm in Daniel 9, Daniel chapter 9 and verse 9. Daniel 9:9. It says, to the Lord our God belong mercies and forgivenesses. Now, if you're watching the wording here in this verse, if you're following along, it says to the Lord our God, meaning if the Lord is your God, to the Lord our God belong mercies and forgivenesses, meaning multiple forgivenesses, many forgivenesses. I thought that was ironic when I looked at that verse when I first read it. I'm thinking to myself, could I have been guilty of multiple wrongs? And I guess I could be. I know that maybe I'm guilty of things. to sit here and tell you things that I know that I was guilty of. Oh, I might have been hot-headed at times. I would have not been interested to hear what somebody said. That's what I was told, that there was something that my mother had done and I didn't want to hear it. I think back on it now and I can kick myself all day long. But kicking myself ain't going to bring back the memory of what I done wrong. I think about it now and I think about the fact that I'll have a time to be able to apologize when I get to glory. Some people might go and say, well, that's sort of a day late and a dollar short. Well, at least I will have the opportunity to say that I'm sorry. I believe that's part of heaven. I believe that when the spiritual body and the physical body meet together, and when we are in heaven, I believe that we will be in the spiritual and in the physical body, because that's the reason the Lord's coming back to get the physical body. Sometimes I always wonder, why would he want that old raggedy body? Well, it was special to him. It was special to the Lord, so he must be wanting his property back. It's the only thing I can think of. He must be wanting his property back. So the dead bodies that are laying in the ground today, he's going to call them up. And they're going to arise. And they're going to come out of their grave. And they're going to meet their spirit man with their physical body. And they're going back to glory. And I just believe that a person that has gone back to glory in their physical and spiritual body, I believe it's going to be one heck of a party. I just believe that. I don't think the Lord would be making heaven for it not to be I'm saying it in the right way when I use the word party. That there's a cheap word. But I believe it's going to be an enjoyment festival. Maybe that's a better word. When you get to heaven, I believe there's going to be time that we will be able to say things from the heart. I'm sure that there would be things that I would love to say to my daddy. I've always respected him. But I'll be honest with you, there was some times that me and him could have come to blows. But see, Dad knew me, and I knew Dad. Can I feel guilty about my anger with my dad even all them years ago on the farm? I can't feel guilty, but I do feel remorse. I do feel like we was two of a kind, just like I said a minute ago. But it says, to the Lord our God belong mercies. You notice it used the word mercies, multiple mercies, and forgivenesses, though we have rebelled against him. To the Lord our God belongeth mercies. See, we've rebelled against God. Can God accept my apology? Does he want me to apologize to the Lord more? Sure. I think that's the reason I love doing these messages, because I feel like if it helps somebody else for me to come out and make a video and admit where I'm wrong, maybe it would help somebody to admit when they're wrong. That's sort of the way maybe I feel. But here's another verse that is over in the book of Ephesians. And I didn't mark any of these verses. I'm at Ephesians chapter 1. Ephesians chapter 1 and verse 7. And we'll end with this one. My time is gone. It says here, now Paul is the writer of the Ephesian book here, in whom we have redemption through his blood. Don't you think that when he wrote that it made him think that God, thank you for redemption, because God had redemption on this man that had all these problems, and the man's name was Saul. But yet this man Paul here is saying, in whom we have redemption, meaning him having redemption through his blood, meaning the Lord's blood. The Christ's blood is what he's talking about. And forgiveness of sins. And the forgiveness of sins according to the riches of his grace. We can't measure the grace of God. No man can measure the extent of the grace of God, but Paul says, according to the riches of his grace. Is God's grace unlimited? Sure it is. God, no man will ever be able to measure. I don't have a tape measure out here. I thought I did one time, and I maybe took it back in, and I don't remember. I'm looking around to see it, but even a tape, well, wait a minute. I do have this. Can we measure the grace of God with a tape measure? How ridiculous is that? But there's people that try to measure the grace of God with their tape measure, meaning the tape measure of their thinking, of their dishonesty, or their righteousness, or their holiness. Does God want me to try to measure the grace of God? No, I think what he wants me to do is accept the grace of God. Just simply accept it. So this message is on forgiveness. And I'll get a chance to say, Mama, I love you and I'm sorry. But what good does it do now? Maybe the Lord might be letting Mama hear that. Elderly Ministry is the YouTube channel. elderlyministry.com is the website. I hope that you got something from this. Don't wait and let somebody pass away. But if you learn something after the fact, just be willing to go to the Lord and ask for the forgiveness. And then it doesn't matter what other people think, because it's already under the blood. Things that are put under the blood is under the blood. And I'm thankful for that. Thank y'all for tuning in again.